Good evening. I'm Kirsty Smith and I'm the Chief Executive of Christian Blind Mission UK, CBM, and I'm delighted to welcome you tonight to our evening with Diane Louise Jordan. CBM is an international disability charity working in the world's poorest places to prevent avoidable blindness and build a world where all people with disabilities can enjoy human rights and fulfill their potential. I am really excited to welcome you for three reasons tonight. The first is this is actually the first major supporter event that we have tried online via Zoom. And it's really wonderful to be able to connect with our supporters around the UK and beyond during this time of lockdown. We would really love to hear from you this evening. So if you have any questions, please do post them in the chat. You'll see a little chat button at the bottom, and the chat function will be live throughout this evening. And we would love to hear your comments, your impressions, and your questions. There are colleagues who are monitoring the chat, so if you have any problems, any technical issues, for example, they should be able to help you with those. This webinar is being recorded, so it will be shared afterwards via CBM UK's YouTube channel. The second reason why we are really excited is that we are celebrating the launch of our See the Way appeal. You're going to be hearing a lot about sight this evening and how eye treatment transforms lives. See the Way fundraising appeal will help improve access to sight-saving treatment, to glasses, and to other equipment and resources and training in some of the world's poorest places. Originally, this appeal was going to run February to May, but it was paused so that CBM could turn our attention to the COVID response, supporting people with disabilities in crisis who are often the most affected, but the last to receive help and support. So we are relaunching it tonight, and until the 17th of December, the UK government will double all donations that we receive. And that will help many people see the way to a brighter future. And any gifts you make will have twice the impact to fund sight-saving treatments and glasses. So if you would like to donate tonight, you can do so online, seetheway.org/Diane, or you can text the word sight to 70660. That's 70660. And that will give £10, which will automatically be doubled to £20 by the UK government. So have a look in the chat. Those details will be posted there. And then there'll be a reminder at the very end, including call charges for text donations and so on. And the third reason why this evening is so exciting is because we are going to be hearing from national broadcasting treasure, Diane Louise Jordan. Good evening, Diane.
Hello there. It's an absolute privilege and a pleasure to be part of this special event, Kirsty. I'm very excited.
We are so delighted to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm just sorry that we have to be sitting in separate rooms. It would be so lovely to be sharing this together in one place. Now, many of you will know, virtual hug indeed, thank you. Many of you will know Diane from presenting Blue Peter, from Songs of Praise, from Radio 2's Sunday Hour. But this evening, you're going to hear about some parts of her life that are much more rarely talked about. Her father's struggle with sight problems and the trip that she made last year to Rwanda to see CBM's work. Diane, tell us a little bit about the impact that sight problems have had on you and on your family.
First of all, I'll just say it's quite interesting, Kirsty, because you said the trip that she had last year, and it really does feel as if it was last year, doesn't it? Because so much has happened this year. But to my father and my whole family, we've got a history of sight issues. On my mum's side, my aunts, my uncles, my grandparents, they've all almost unanimously have had cataracts to deal with. There's been glaucoma on my mother's side. And as far as I know about my father's side, there's been which I know less about, but again, there's a history of glaucoma. Bringing it right into my immediate family, when I was a young child, my father, a few years after he migrated to the UK from Jamaica, he was working in a toothpaste factory, actually, and the chemicals from the toothpaste actually flew up and hit him in the face and actually infected one of his eyes. And it was at a time where health and safety was very different to what it was now. So he wasn't wearing any sort of protective eye care or anything like that. And so he lost the sight in one eye. Now, as a child, my dad seemed like the same person. We didn't really notice how much that infected him. He had one eye that he could see out of. The only thing we really noticed was that he had one brown eye and one blue eye, which is the least sighted eye. Of course, it affected his ability to drive, but that was probably all we really noticed. You know, my dad's life, it just seemed like a normal life, and he used to cycle everywhere, so he was super fit because he couldn't drive. But then during his soon after his retirement, we noticed that he was really, he kept sort of not, you know, if you're to the side of him, he seemed to be getting you confused with somebody else or not quite seeing what you were seeing. And this sort of few signs that things weren't quite as clear as they should be with his eyesight kept, there were signs that something was not quite right. But being of a certain generation, not wanting to trouble anybody, my dad just kept sort of, you know, putting it off, just saying, oh, you know, it's fine, maybe I'm just getting old. But finally, it got to such a severe degree that he went to the optician and discovered that he had quite advanced glaucoma. And it really actually started to massively knock his confidence, because I think it was knowing that this world, because he kept saying, oh, look, I feel as if my eyesight's closing in, and didn't sort of make sense to us. And then obviously getting the medical confirmation of that, almost overnight, he lost his confidence. And especially when the medical team told him they couldn't improve his sight, the best they could do was to maintain it where it was. And my dad was so, despite it being quite an advanced situation, he was so lucky, so blessed to have the medical team that he had over here. They did absolutely everything to save his life. I felt as if he was having like the red carpet treatment, as if he was royalty or something. And what I realized is this is the treatment we get in this country at point of use, free of charge. And it really bowled me over that my dad was getting one of the best surgeons in the country, who treated my dad as if he was, you know, his own precious son. And, you know, really, and the whole team, they were absolutely dedicated to, you know, fighting for my dad's sight. So that's the first thing that really got me realizing from a very personal point of view how precious sight is. And actually, just before I was coming to speak to you guys tonight, my husband actually reminded me about my uncle, who on my mum's side, my uncle Barry, he was like the cheeky chappy of my mum's brothers and sisters, and he was the fun uncle, really brilliant, a bit naughty, always, you know, one for the ladies as well. I mean, he was very faithful to his wife when he was married, but, you know, he was very charming and all of that stuff, and great, cheeky. And then a few years back, I went to visit my folks in Jamaica, and I hadn't seen this particular Uncle Barry, for a few years. And nobody had told me that he'd been diagnosed with glaucoma. And again, he wasn't either in a situation, or he chose not to, you know, look at the signs until it was too late. And he lost his sight. And I mean, he had literally a tiny pinprick of sight. And with the loss of sight came like a tumultuous crashing of confidence. And, you know, he came from a very nice family. They were, you know, they had more than most people. And so, you know, he had somebody who would care for him all the time and, you know, be his eyes and all the rest of it. But it made no difference to his confidence. And I remember when I went, the last time I saw him, he was a real shadow of himself. So I think all these personal experiences really made me realize how precious our sight is.
Yeah, absolutely. And you actually met somebody, didn't you, while you were in Rwanda, who had a similar story to your father's, but in a obviously a very different context. Do you want to just say a little bit about Vincent?
Yes, well, first of all, I just want to say it makes sense because of my own experience why I really want to champion the work that CBM does. Because yes, in the UK, and even with my uncle in Jamaica, because he was with a family that could afford to pay for things, both my dad and my uncle Jimmy had great treatment. But then I came to Rwanda and we visited Vincent, who is absolutely, he's gorgeous and he's very charming. And actually I did say to him that he reminded me of a sort of more suave, trimmed down version of my dad. And no insult to my dad, but Vincent, he's a very attractive, smart, well put together old man. He's in his 70s. And well, I suppose from whatever perspective you look at him, he's a young man. And he's very charming. His wife is striking and gorgeous. They're a really beautiful couple. And Vincent was a builder, or he's a builder by trade and also a farmer. And he lives in one of the villages quite far from the main city in Rwanda. We traveled for a few hours. Transportation, the infrastructure, the travel infrastructure is a lot less sophisticated than we have here. So travel is not easy in Rwanda. So anyway, we went to see the wonderful Vincent, and his wife's name's just escaped me, but I'm so annoyed that I can't remember her name, but she's a really lovely lady. And charming, hospitable, all the rest of it. But also he, like my family, he has cataracts. Thanks to the amazing work of CBM, he's able to get to the hospital. It is miles away. It isn't, hours of travel, but he is having the care that he needs. That's sort of the lifeline to him to keep his sight on track. And he said if it wasn't for CBM, he'd go the way that a lot of people in his situation, in his country do go, which is basically lose their sight, lose their life. One of the things that I was incredibly impressed with Vincent about and humbled by is how much he really does really appreciate, really values the treatment that's on offer to him, to the extent that he has to leave his house. I think it's about 3 or 4 in the morning, like some ridiculous hour in the morning, bearing in mind his sight is really impaired. And then he walks for I think over an hour anyway, but he walks 4 miles on, tracks that, road that's not nicely tarmac like it is here. So, he could stumble. He's an older gentleman. His sight's not ideal. It's basically in the middle of the night, and he's walking for hours just to get to a bus stop, for that bus to take him hours into the center, into the city of Rwanda, into the capital of Rwanda, to get the treatment. That's how dedicated he is, and how much he values his sight and the work that CBM's doing to prevent his sight from worsening. And to me, it's a credit to him, and it's a credit to the work of your organisation and the amazing support that you get from all the generous people who give to this charity, so that the work can be carried out. So, I'm so humbled to be here tonight, to be speaking to some of your supporters and to champion them, and just to really encourage them to carry on giving, actually, because every single penny is so well spent. And it's really good value for money as well, because £24, I think it is. That's all it takes of our donations, £24 for somebody like Vincent to have his sight saved, and therefore to have a good quality of life.
You paint You paint such an evocative picture, Diane, and actually the situation that you describe and the commitment and dedication that people like Vincent have, we see that over and over again in many of our countries, where people who really face significant challenges to access healthcare really fight hard for that right to be able to change their lives. And as you say, sadly, many people actually stay blind for years and years, and sometimes decades, completely needlessly. We are very, very fortunate that you have been a supporter of CBM for a long while, and we are so delighted to have you as part of our journey. And obviously you bring life experience to that. As part of your relationship with CBM, you travelled to Rwanda and you visited our partner hospital, Kabgayi Eye Unit, and you met families there that were affected by sight problems. What were the abiding memories of that trip for you?
Well, actually, one of the memories that really is just stirring in me again, as we were just speaking about Vincent and how appreciative he is of the treatment that he gets. And as you said, Kirsty, he's just one of many people who really value what's being offered to them. It actually reminds me of where we are in this country sometimes and how much we take for granted the facilities we have for good eye care. Even in my own family, you know, I've got my two brothers who they've seen what's happened firsthand, you know, front row seats to see what's happened to our members of our own family, and somehow there's a bit of a disconnect that they need to check their sight every year. And you know, even somebody like me, and I'm fortunate that I have a good standard of living and all the rest of it, but because of this history of glaucoma, I'm able to, you know, I'm offered free eye tests every year to check that, you know, just to a preventative service that I'm convinced that every single person that we met in Rwanda would jump at. You know, I think they'd be completely agog to find people in this country just so blasé about the fantastic treatment we have here. So I think that was one of the things that really struck me, just the gratitude, the difference in gratitude for what people have, and or what people, the little that we have that we can offer them. I also took my grandson with me. And the reason I took my grandson is because, well, he obviously knows that we have this particular trait in our family, the susceptibility to glaucoma in particular. And he also knows that his uncles, that they're grand uncles, are not quite as concerned as their granny is. So I just wanted them to know that I'm not that crazy, that, you know, there's a reason. And also I wanted him to come to Rwanda with me because he's a beautiful boy, and he, you know, he knows that he's privileged and that he has a lot of, there's a lot coming his way that may not be going other people's way. But he's a leader as well. You know, he's got great influence amongst his peers, and he's got a great heart. So I thought, well, a combination of all those things. Let him come with me and see how other people live, so that he can maybe appreciate more of what he has. And also, I thought he might be a good advocate to spread the word among the younger generation. And you know, he's doing quite well there. So. Yes, what struck us was when we went there was just how in this country, if you have any sort of eyesight challenge in any sort of way, any sort of deficiency or limitation, you can, on the whole, you can still get on with your life and you can still flourish. And all we have to do is think about David Blunkett, who has done incredibly well with the most impressive public people that we can think of, you know, just great successful career. Going to somewhere like Rwanda, the difference is literally life and death. If you don't have your sight, it can really hamper your life. And we actually went to visit young, as well as obviously meeting Vince's wife, we also met Etienne, a 10-year-old boy who, well, we fell in love with. If I could have scooped him up and put him in my suitcase and smuggled him back to England, I would have done, although I know that would have made his mum very unhappy. It's not the right thing to do. But he's a really lovely boy, 10 years old, and he was actually born with cataracts. And until I met Etienne, I didn't actually realise that children could have cataracts. I used to think that was something for older people. But anyway, he was born with cataracts. So it meant that he really had, for all his 10 years, he had no sight. He could maybe just make out people's shadows, but that was it. And he lives in a very remote area. They call where he lives a village. I live in a village, but I would probably describe where he lives nearer to a hamlet. I mean, they don't have the corner shop or the village hall or the local pub or anything like that. It's, you know, it's a very simple way of living. And most of the people, including his family in his community, they're subsistence farmers, which basically means they farm for what they eat, and the little bit extra, they go to market and they get whatever they can get, so to pay for all the other things that they need in life. It's very, very tight, very frugal way of living. And it also means that every member of the family has to contribute to bringing in the daily bread, whatever age you are. So for Etienne and his brothers and sisters, they would be expected to go to school, and when they're not at school, to be working on the land with their parents to contribute. And obviously, as the older you get, the more you're expected to contribute. Somebody like Etienne, who cannot see, he's now, even at the age of 10, he's a burden. And that burden will increase as he gets older. We believe that there were times, because his mother has to work as well. She hasn't got the luxury of staying at home and being, you know, a mother at home while the father goes to work or something like that. So everybody goes to work, and Etienne would have to sometimes stay at home on his own because there's nobody to look after him. He can't go to school. He can't do those things. So already this little boy is knowing that life is not great for him, and the trajectory of his life without the input from CBM supporters was extremely bleak, because, you know, who would want to marry somebody who, you know, who couldn't provide for their family? Just not practical. It's a harsh reality. And, you know, the other bitter irony around that was he's so beautiful. I mean, his spirit was divine, and also he's so beautiful to look at, and he has these amazing big sparkly eyes with, you know, lashes that, you know, that any girl would kill for, you know, really beautiful little boy. And I just thought, gosh, you've got the most amazing eyes and you can't use them. How, you know, how mean. So that's what we went to. And also we were told that it costs £94 for a child to have the operation to reverse the sight loss, which would have, I mean, the impact on that person's life is not even worth, you know, I can't even put into words how day and night that is. £94. And I think that was the thing that I knew this, but when you see somebody and you see how they live, and you know, you become, you step into their world, and you see it in a much wider context, it's even more devastating than all the reporting you know, everything I'm saying now, everything you report in all your glorious magazines and all the other ways that you give the information to your supporters, it's brilliant. But being there, it magnifies it in a way that nothing else can. So, you know, we really experienced the impact of where that £94 goes and how life-giving, literally life-giving it is. And my grandson, Preston, he kept saying to me, Granny, this doesn't make sense. He said, how comes Etienne, who's the same age as his younger sister, how comes He's not allowed to go to school. How comes that he may never be able to kick a football or, you know, do any of the things that we take for granted just because of £94? He was saying, my trainers cost more than that. You know, my mobile phone costs more than that. If we go out for a family meal, sometimes that could cost more than that. How is it's not fair, Granny? I said, exactly, it's not fair. But the great thing is we can do something about it. We can reverse this. And, you know, that's why we're here. And, you know, so that gave us a little bit of hope, thinking, you know, £94. Well, if nobody's given that, we can whip that out of our pocket and pay for it now and then. You know, it was so important. So anyway, we were there. We felt hopeful. We met the amazing doctor. I think his name's Dr. Theophil. I think that's his name. Really amazing man and very good at his job. And he could be like a lot of other very talented medics. In fact, he has been wooed to come to the West to work in our hospitals for, you know, much nice money and all the snazzy conditions and everything that goes with that. And he won't. It's like this is his calling, and he is determined to stay in Rwanda, working with charities like yours, to literally do the work that other people won't do, to give people a chance of real life. And so we brought, you know, Etienne came to the hospital, and I was like, great, the doctor's going to do his thing. And the doctor said, well, look, I have to tell you, this work that we do, it's almost guaranteed with children under 5. You know, we feel confident that we can give a child under 5 this operation and their sight will return. Etienne's 10 years old. He's twice the age that we would really work on. Please do not raise your hopes. You know, we cannot guarantee that this is all going to work out. So I was just thinking, this is so unfair. Honestly, I was raging sometimes. Like, so unfair. There's so many obstacles to this little boy having the life that most of us would want our children to take for granted. And, you know, I'm a mum, I'm a grandma, and I know that every mother and every grandparent would, we'd lay up, and every grandfather or, you know, daddy, we'd lay our lives down for our children to have a better life. And here we were, with Etienne's parents, and I remember on the first day we met his mom. His dad's very reserved anyway, and he's very quiet, so at the beginning he was harder to read. His mum was really easy to read. Her expression was, she was just, you could see the sadness in her eyes at the beginning. You know, she was just, and she felt so helpless that here was her son and there was nothing she could do. And also the local clinic that she took her son to at the beginning, when she found out he had no sight, they didn't even know what to do. They weren't equipped to do anything to help her child. And so, and the thought of even traveling, paying for the travel and going to the big city and paying for the costs at a big hospital, all of that is so prohibitive to them that, you know, she just felt like this most useless, helpless mum, and we were her last hope. And she also knew that we came 5 years too late. So there was trepidation around this experience. So it really wasn't a foregone conclusion at all. And then the other thing that really struck me was on the day that so this little boy, he's living in this very remote place, and he has no hope for the future as far as his sight's concerned or anything else. And then all of a sudden, these people arrive in this 4x4, you know, 2 Range Rovers come into town, and all these foreign speaking weird people come out with cameras and microphones, and, you know, and he must have had a, you know, sort of sensory overload. And then the next thing he knows, all these strange people are talking to him and asking him weird questions. And then at the end of it, his daddy and he get into one of these vehicles with these strange people, and it's the first time ever in his life he's being separated from his mom. He has no idea, even though she says, you know, you'll be back, I'll see you tomorrow. Like, where am I going? Why are they kidnapping me? You know, it's just like, what's going on? And he was actually quite distressed, and I felt really mean, because thinking, we're doing this, he's only going to be away for 48 hours, but we were taking him away from the one thing that was familiar, the one, you know, the area, his parents, his family, and only his daddy was going with him. And so much was resting, you know, like we were telling him that he may have his sight tomorrow, but can you imagine 10 years of no sight, and then someone telling you that the next day you may have something that you've never experienced, and you know, who knows what that's going to be. So anyway, that was what happened. You know, that was the setup. Us traveling back to Kabaye and seeing what the doctor could do. And I think we're going to be showing the film very shortly, aren't we?
That's right.
Yes. You know, maybe this is a good time for the audience to watch the film, and then we can talk about what happened after.
You paint the story so vividly, and one of the great tragedies of our work is that actually 4/5 of the sight impairment and blindness problems that we see could have been prevented or could be treated. And often children like Etienne
live for
years and years without being able to access the treatment that they need for £95, as you say. And that outrage that you describe, that injustice, is what actually drives us in our work. The connection that you had with Etienne, I know it was a really special one for you and also for him. We're actually going to have the opportunity to see it now. Not everybody has the opportunity to travel to our projects, as Diane did, but we thought, since we had this amazing broadcaster and storyteller with us, we would take the opportunity to film some footage. And so we're going to show that now, and afterwards there will be a chance to ask more questions of Diane. So please do keep them coming. Diane, I know you can't see the chat box, but it's absolutely full of people commenting and asking questions and saying you look fabulous with your hair. So after the film, we will have time for more questions, but we're going to move now to take you on a journey to Rwanda.
I'm here in Rwanda to witness firsthand the incredible work of CBM. And on a personal level, it has particular meaning for me, as I'll be sharing this very personal journey with my grandson, Preston. It takes 3.5 hours to reach the village, where we finally get to meet a very special boy, 10-year-old Etienne.
Seraphine, it's such a pleasure and an honour to meet you and to meet Etienne.
Hello.
Oh, hello. Thank you. And this is Preston? It's very nice to meet you. Have you ever been able to see?
No.
What does that seem like to you, Preston?
It's pretty hard.
Can I ask you, Etienne, do you go to school?
No.
What is it like not to be able to see anything?
Ese ntabwo tujya tumutuma nk'ahantu hakure, niyo tugiye gusenga kandi paruwasi yacu iri hano haraguru, ni ukugenda igihe tugenda tumufashe gutya akaboko kugira ngo ajye gusenga kubera ko akunda kujya gusenga.
Did you know ever that there was treatment for your child to get his sight?
Maze kubera ko nyine namujyanye ku bantu bari baje kuvura amaso batanga amarinete, no kubera ubushobozi bukeya ubwo nyine byatumye nagira imbaraga zo kujya kumuvuza kubera ubuzima nyine namwe.
That's very hard, isn't it?
Etienne's mum is so amazing. She's had to watch 10 years of her child basically suffering due to an eye condition that could easily be put right. I think there's a little bit inside me that's a bit angry, actually, that in the 21st century, there are still places on this incredibly rich earth where people don't even have the basics of sight. This hospital in Kabayi was founded by CBM and Rwandan partners in 1993. Since then, 25 people every day receive sight-saving operations that are literally life-changing. For the first time in his life, Etienne spent last night away from his village and away from his mum. So I'm super keen to find out how he's doing. Etienne Senior, Daddy, this is the big day now. This is a day that could change Etienne's and your family's life. How are you both?
Twishimye cyane rwose kuko nawe byandenze hano nageze hano bakanyakira neza no mu gitondo cyane.
Etienne, how are you feeling today? Urishimye? Well, we're really excited for you as well, really hopeful that today will make a big difference. Everywhere I looked today, all I could see were people who looked as if they had severe eye conditions, but because of the location, because we're here, because people live in poverty, because they have so little, what to us is a sort of minor medical condition is a major life-threatening condition here. This cannot go on. We cannot have this in the 21st century. At the moment, I just felt such love for that little boy, you know, I couldn't actually bear it. I'm dreading tomorrow in a sense, because I can't bear the thought that he's going to take those bandages off his eyes and still not be able to see. And I can't imagine how his family must be feeling, especially as having to wait 10 years significantly reduces the possibility of a successful outcome.
Hello.
So this is the moment.
That's it. Amakuru. Fungura amaso.
Can you see?
Fungura amaso. Fungura amaso. Nayo ni ikaramu. Yifate turebe.
Oh my days, that's a miracle. You can see. Papa, this is a miracle. How are you feeling? Etienne, what does it feel like to be able to see?
I'm very happy.
You're very happy? I'm very happy too. Having this time in Rwanda with my grandson Preston has been so precious. Without doubt, it's an experience that will stay with both of us for the rest of our lives. Before we return to the UK, we're on our way to say goodbye to our new friends. And as one mum to another, I asked Seraphine how it feels to have her boy safely home.
You look so happy. Yeah.
Nimara kumubona numvishe nkomeye numva ndakomeye mbese imbaraga z'Imana ndavuga ngo abaganga bafatanyije n'Imana bakoze numva ndishimye.
It's a real miracle.
Igitangaza gikomeye muri njyewe ndashima gushima.
Ejo hazaza Imana ifashe akazi nk'akazamura n'akazavura abandi.
Well, little Etienne, your future, it's now bright, isn't it? Come here, where's my hug? Where's my... Oh.
It's crazy because he probably couldn't even see it like a day ago. And now you can draw. It would be nice seeing Etienne in like 5 years' time, see where he's at. I'm really happy for him as well.
I don't know if I've actually the words to describe how joyful I feel right now, actually, over something that is relatively simple to put right. And thanks so much to the people who support this really good charity. That little boy, that precious little Etienne, yesterday he couldn't see. Today, his sight has returned and his future is so bright. I really hope that people who watch this story, watch this journey, I really hope that it moves them as much as it's moved me to help even more little Etiennes. There are many of them and they really deserve the gift of sight. Please give what you can today, because right now your gift will help twice as many people like Etienne to see the way to a brighter future.
Diane, how does it feel revisiting that journey?
It's actually still, I was there. I know the story. I've watched the film back so many times, but it's still really because people shouldn't have to suffer that much. It's, as you said, 3 in 4 people do not need to have unnecessary blindness, and I'm sure other people have seen how powerful that story is, how fantastic the work is that CBM's doing to ensure that people have better lives, and it costs so little. And I know that right now that we're living in really tough times. I know that there are a lot of people in this country who, since the beginning of March or middle of March, are facing challenges that they never thought were possible. I've encountered on a first-hand basis some real tragedies in this country because of what's happening, because of the pandemic, both emotionally, financially, practically, in all sorts of ways. And I know that because this pandemic is affecting us worldwide, the knock-on effect of this in areas where there's greater poverty, less access to all the sort of infrastructure we have, the pressure on those people is immense. And if we even take lovely little Etienne, look how, did you see his mother? Did you see the change in her face? At the beginning, she was so downcast, and at the end, like she was like this Amazon who just kept hugging me, and she was so bright and hopeful. And even his dad, who's so sort of shy and reserved and lovely, even he was just, you could even see the jubilation in him. It was, we all witnessed a miracle. there's never a time in my life ever again I can say that miracles don't exist, because they do. And that one cost £94. You know, it's like, I'll pay for another one. And then we left feeling very hopeful, thinking, oh my gosh, he's going to be able to go to school now. You know, we witnessed his first ever pen to paper. Funnily enough, he drew a stick man. I was like, how do you know how to draw stick men? But you know, but we felt very hopeful that he'd be going to school and that his life would take a change for the better, and that he'd be going back up to Kabaya to get his glasses and the eye drops and all the other stuff that needs to go on after the operation, all the aftercare. And then a few weeks later, we came back and the world just stopped. You know, we had this pandemic, and that means he hasn't been to school. He hasn't been able to get to the hospital. You know, all of that good stuff has been halted. Now, we believe that the schools are beginning to open, so he should be going back to school now. I think he had one trip back to the hospital before lockdown, and so we know that things were looking good. So you know, that was the really vital, important trip, and we're now praying that he's able to go back. But you know, there are lots of other Etiennes who need our money, and they need it now. And yes, we're in a tough place. We're in a really tough place, and I'm not saying that lightly. There are people suffering here. I'm reminded though of something my granddad once said to me is, and you know, he passed it through my mum, which is, the more you give, the more you get. And and also I believe that, well, in fact, there's a girlfriend of mine, and she's a real inspiration, because she lives in the UK and she doesn't have all the resources that many of us have. She really does live hand to mouth, and she comes from a family that lives hand to mouth. So she doesn't have any sort of safety net, as far, you know, apart from universal credit, but, you know, she doesn't have any of the privilege that a lot of us have in this country. And whenever she gets money, she gives, you know, like as Christians, we're encouraged to tithe 10%. Well, she tithes 90% and she keeps 10%. I know, look at your face, Kirsty. Exactly. She does it the opposite way around. She gives away 90%. And just in this pandemic, life was very, very tough for her. She didn't even know where she was going to live. It was very tough. No work, nowhere to live, really, really tough. And I'm watching it, and she kept saying, don't worry, God's gonna look after me. And I'm thinking, he might not, you know, because it didn't look too good. And anyway, at the 11th hour, somebody gave her, you know, something to get by on, and she still gave 90% of it away. And I was like, whoa. And her principle is, we always pay it forward. If you pay it forward, someone will be paying it forward to you. So I'm sort of encouraged by that, actually, because I'm thinking, what a great time to really show how fabulous God is in this time where people are really scared about their future, really don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, really feeling, you know, scared. And then, you know, fear normally means you hold on to things, doesn't it? Well, the Bible says that perfect love casts out fear, and you cannot have two masters. You can't have fear and love as your same master. So which one are you going to choose? If we choose love, which is God, that means we've got to trust God. So what better way, what better time to give, you know, just give luxuriously, you know, like give ferociously right now, because if we do, what will be passed on to us? You know, selfish, really, isn't it?
Diane, the questions have been pouring in, so I'm going to ask you a few of them now. We had lots in advance. We've also had lots in the chat during the film. And one of the questions is actually, why had Etienne not had surgery before?
Because the local clinic where his, that's close to his family, I don't think they even knew that it could be done. They certainly didn't have the resources. And for his parents, £94 sounds like that's like, you know, what they may earn in a year. It's a lot of money. You know, it's way out of their budget, and it's not even like they can borrow it from their neighbour, because their neighbour is in the same sort of dire straits. And on top of that, there's the travelling to get there. And I don't even know if his parents knew that it was really possible. It was a might be possible, and an expense that they could only dream of. And that's why he'd never been to a hospital before.
No, absolutely. And that is actually a story that we hear so often. Eye health services are simply out of reach for many people in rural areas. Often there are not trained staff in the local hospitals, so people would have to travel to the capital, and they can't afford the bus fare, let alone £95 for the surgery. People have actually been asking in the chat why there is the difference between the £24 for an adult and £95 for a child. And the reason is because for an adult, the operation, which takes about 15 to 20 minutes, can be done with local anaesthetic, whereas for a child, they need to use general anaesthetic, and it therefore costs more because you obviously need an anaesthetist and an entire team to keep the child safe during surgery. We've also had a question about how children having cataracts and it being something that one would normally associate with older people, and how is it that Etienne had cataracts from birth? Did they talk to you very much about that when you were there?
Well, I don't remember them talking about it as if it was an unusual thing, to be quite honest. Maybe it's just something that we don't know, or we don't really experience in the West. I don't know, but it wasn't unusual. And that's the thing the doctor was saying, that some children are actually born with cataracts. And I suppose here, or, you know, in places that have a more sophisticated network, it's caught early, it can be sorted out early. I really didn't know that was an issue, but it's not uncommon.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And in fact, lots of the impairment that we see in many countries where CBM works, these conditions just wouldn't exist in a child of Etienne's age, because they would have been treated as soon as the child was born. And yet for Etienne, it could have meant an entire lifetime without education, and then going on into adulthood, real challenges to earn a living, and so on. One of the questions is about whether public payment is also provided for transport. And I can reassure everybody that absolutely, we don't just make sure that treatment is available. We train the staff so that the health systems become longer term sustainable, that we leave behind a stronger system. We also try to make sure that the health treatment is available in much more rural areas. So we try to spread it out from the centre so that more people can access it without that long and expensive bus journey. But we also ensure that treatment is provided as part of an overall package, which includes the transport and then the glasses and the eye drops that Diane described for those who have cataract surgery that is required afterwards.
And that's another reason why I love what you do, because it is a complete, you really do look at the whole human being and all of their circumstances. It's not just you just throw a stone in and run off. And I think when I was talking to some other some of your team in Rwanda, I know that there's a strong desire, it might be more than a desire now, for work to be done, as you said, more locally, but it does need more investment from supporters. So, I cannot emphasize how vital it is that we generously give, and particularly now, if we can give between now and the 17th of December, because we're right in the middle of our See the Way campaign, it means that every single penny that people donate now, the government will double. So for me, it's like, if you're having any doubt about contributing, please don't, and tell all your friends and tell all your enemies. We don't care who it is, just bring the money in. And I'm being really serious, because if we do it now, we can double the impact on people's lives. And so we won't be hearing so many of these stories where people are having to travel, because that is stressful. I was thinking about Vincent, the 70-year-old man. Well, my dad was in his 70s when he was when he had all the treatment on his eyes, and he was so lucky that he lived in the home counties, and the treatment was in London, and they sent transport to take my dad, specifically a car from where he lived to the front door of the hospital, because they knew he couldn't manage on public transport, because I lived at the other end of the country at that time, and they just provided that as just as everyday part of the treatment. Right. And my dad would have needed that, because he was so the confidence, the vulnerability, all of that stuff, and yet there's somebody like Vincent having to do a much tougher journey because of the, how the resources have to be shared out. So yes, please, more money so that we can get more stuff locally.
We've got time just for two tiny questions, one for me and one for you. So the first one is how coronavirus has affected the situation in Rwanda. And I can say that unfortunately, many of the places where CBM works have been very, very detrimentally affected by corona, because basically many of the health provision, such as the cataract surgery that you've heard about tonight and the glaucoma treatment, has been put on hold. And many of the projects have been pivoted to COVID response. In fact, Kabgayi in Rwanda has stayed open to try to continue providing the vital treatment, but actually many people have not been able to travel there because of transport restrictions and so on. We have provided protective clothing, protective equipment for the staff there to try to enable them to continue to do their jobs. But as we know, many of the operations have not taken place. There is a huge backlog in many medical procedures and in treatments, and certainly in rehabilitation work for people with other disabilities. It really has basically been on hold for 6 months. So we are beginning to see services starting up again, but it has been an extremely challenging time for all of our partners in the field. And the last question for you, Diane, there's lots of fans who have put comments in the chat, but one from Stuart who says, what was it like being on the Blue Peter team, and what was your favourite song from Songs of Praise?
Oh, Blue Peter was so dreary. It was the most boring job. I love Blue Peter. It's really funny. I look back at my CV that I've done so many different programs over the years, and as have all my ex-Blue Peter colleagues. And all of us, when we get together, we all say that this, without a shadow of a doubt, it was the best show we've ever done. And I suppose proof of that is that I still have very close friends. I'm not the sort of showbiz person on the red carpet or any of that stuff. I'm very private and like a simple life. But my Blue Peter buddies, I'm really good friends with, particularly Tim Vincent, John Leslie, Anthea. They're my real close buddies. But Janet as well. And we're Simon Thomas. We're really good friends. And my editor at the time, he's I think he thinks he's my dad. He's always checking in, making sure I'm doing things right. And we go on holiday together, his family and my family, and we're very, very close. I love Blue Peter. Songs of Praise, what's my favourite hymn? How Great Thou Art, without a shadow of a doubt, is one of my favourite hymns. And we sang that at both my mum and my dad's funerals, and at my wedding. And it will be at my funeral, just thought I'd let you know that. And at the moment, I'm listening to, there's a really beautiful song called, I think it's called 10,000 Billion Reasons. It's not the Matt Redmond one. I wish I could remember what it was called now. I think it's called 10 billion times or something. But it's all about how much you love God. And there's another worship song called Most Beautiful. And they're my favourites at the moment. But How Great Thou Art. Brilliant.
We're coming to the end of our time together, sadly. I'm just going to take a moment for all of us to pray together, and then we're going to close off. Lord, we give thanks for the gift of sight, for the joy that it brings, and for the beauty of the world around us. We pray for all those living with sight problems, and we pray that they can gain access to treatment and to the support that they need. We ask for an end to the stigma and discrimination faced by people with visual impairment and other types of disability living in poor places. And we pray that we can together build a world where all people can enjoy their human rights and fulfill their potential. We pray particularly for the incredible staff at Kabgayi and at other CBM partners, for the community volunteers who go out to find people like Etienne and to take them to the services supported by CBM supporters. We pray for Christian Blind Mission and our work, and particularly we ask for your blessing on this See the Way appeal, knowing how much we are able to transform the lives of people with sight loss in the world's poorest places. And we thank you for the opportunity to come together this evening. Diane, final word from you.
Well, my final word is, in the words of the great Bob Geldof, we want your money. No, but seriously, there's this really, you know, please, we do need your money, and we do, if you can, we do need your money now. This moment, this is a little window where we can really do double the greatness that this organisation has been doing for the past year and beyond. So that's what I'd say. And however you can support this community, even this organisation, even if it's just telling your friends or your enemies, we don't mind. But yeah, please support CBM and the magnificent work that this organisation is doing. I've seen it firsthand. It really does change lives.
Diane, it has been an absolute pleasure having you with us this evening. You are a national treasure. You are a CBM treasure. We are extremely grateful for all the support that you bring, and how vividly and passionately you have shared that with all of us this evening. And also,
well, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. And I just have to say, if you're called a national treasure, you know you're old. Or you might say you're welcome. Well, I'll take that. It's very nice.
We'd also like to thank you who have joined us this evening and for giving us an hour of your time. It has been really wonderful to have you. It would have been so nice to have been face to face, but this has been the next best thing to help us to see the way off to an exciting start. Don't forget that every gift that has been made this evening or that is made over the next 5 weeks will be doubled by the UK government. So if you would like to donate, it's seetheway.org/Diane, or text the word site to 70660, and your £10 will become £20. Thank you so much, everybody. God bless you and good night.
Night.